So I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about bankruptcy, what it is, how it works, why you want to do it. Now, most of the time when someone comes in and sees me, understand this is entertainment purposes only. We do not have a attorney-client privilege here or relationship. But the reason why some people come in and want to file bankruptcy, their house is in foreclosure, they've lost their job, the credit card debt is too high, and they're just overwhelmed. And feel a little bit upset about having to file bankruptcy, but I want you to understand that corporations are bailed out all of the time. Banks were bailed out recently. And the reason for a bankruptcy for an individual is so that you can reset. Once you're reset, you're able to start paying your debts. You're able to contribute into society a little bit more. You're able to help the economy go. It's actually a good thing for everyone if you're able to get back on your feet, take care of yourself, and not have the stress of all of these debts. It's not for everyone, but hopefully if you have any questions, you might be able to contact an attorney, or if you're in the area, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to work with you. If you need a recommendation, let me know, and we can always find someone for you as well. So there are three types of bankruptcies. There's a Chapter 7, Chapter 11, and Chapter 13. Now 11 is for businesses, so we're not really going to talk about it. You're really deciding between a Chapter 7 and a Chapter 13. Chapter 7 is don't have any assets that are worth keeping. We'll go through that in a second. Even if you have a house, you may still want to file a Chapter 7. 13 says, listen, things aren't that terrible. I'm making enough to cover all of my debts, but I'm never going to get ahead. And so I need to keep my assets, or you're making too much. And so there's a repayment in a Chapter 13. It's sort of like a restructuring for an individual. If you have a choice or an option, you usually want to file a Chapter 7. You have to look at all of the different options, but a 7 is done immediately. It lets you start over, where a Chapter 13 generally is anywhere from 3 to 5 years long. The courts will take any of your disposable income, use that to pay down your debt, and at the end of that time, whether you've paid them off in full or not, you're done. Understand that their definition of your disposable income and yours are probably significantly different. So a Chapter 7 bankruptcy is what I'm going to talk about right now. Chapter 7, there are certain things that you're allowed to do and certain things you're allowed to make. In order to qualify for a Chapter 7, you have to be below what's called the means test. Now, for an individual who is single, in order to file a Chapter 7, you have to make less than $4,037 a month, or $48,000, $441. If you have dependents, that goes up by generally $700 a month. And if you have even if your spouse is not filing with you, they will look at their income the household income when seeing if you qualify for a bankruptcy. Dependents will count on that. So if you have children under 18, if you're in a divorce situation, if you are claiming the children, you usually can count that as one of your people. But make sure that you have an attorney or someone look over your qualifications and make sure that you qualify for that. So let's assume that you're making $55,000 a year. And these numbers I gave you are for Cuyahoga County, Ohio. Every county, every state is different. They go by the mean family income, which is not exactly the average, but every county is different. You can look this up on the U.S. Trustee Means Testing Tables if you want to search that. Otherwise, again, contact your attorney. These numbers are updated with census and quite often, so you want to make sure you're using the right numbers. But I'm using the numbers for Cuyahoga County, Ohio, and this is February of 2019. After you discover whether you qualify for the means test, and let's say you don't, you're making $55,000 a year. If you're making over that, you now can do a long form and see if you qualify. You're going to enter in all of your income, and you're going to enter all of your certain expenses, what you're paying for health care, what you're paying for child care. It's a lot more complicated. I'm not going to go into the weeds for this. But just understand that even if you are over that minimum number, you can still qualify for a Chapter 7 depending on your situation. It's just not a check the box, easy to go. And you're going to look at your last 6 months of income. So we found out that we qualified by one way or another. We now have to see what kind of debts you have. Payday loans, credit cards, do you owe your Aunt Mildred some money? Everything is in there. Some people say, well, I have this credit card, but there's no balance on it. I don't want to include that. Everything is included. Understand that a lot of people feel they want to save a credit card for after the bankruptcy. You cannot save one thing or another. And quite honestly, once they see you file the bankruptcy, they're probably going to cancel your card anyway because they routinely pull your credit. Now, if you decide to pay Aunt Mildred back after your bankruptcy, you're free to do so. Understand that it's a gift that you're giving them, not a repayment. But once you file, you're done. All of those debts are going away, and they cannot ask you for them again. If they do, there's consequences. It's a long process. Again, that's a whole different animal that we can talk about. Now that we've named all the debts, what are your assets? A lot of things people forget about. Do you have a car? I don't want to lose my car. I need a way of getting to work. You have a house. It was free and clear, or you're upside down in it. Understand that you can save part of your car. There are exemptions when you're filing a bankruptcy. These exemptions are things that you can protect and keep through your bankruptcy process. The most common ones are cash on hand, $475. Again, these numbers are for today in Cuyahoga County, Ohio. These numbers can be different anywhere in the country. Now we have the cash on hand. You have the homestead exemption. So if you own a home, the equity in your home that you can protect currently is $136,925. I'm going to put some of the exemptions up on the screen so that you can see where they are, but they're usually under Ohio Revised Code section 2329.66. There are some other ones in other areas, but that's the majority of them. Contact an attorney. They know where they are. They know what the exemptions are. But for the homestead, for your house, you have a protection of, we're going to say, $136,000. So if your house is worth less than $136,000, you get to keep your house. Let's say your house is worth $200,000 and you have a mortgage for $250,000. You have no equity in the house. The mortgage is more than the house, so you're protected. Let's say that the house is worth $200,000 and you have a mortgage for $100,000. The equity is $100,000. That is less than the $136,000. You are protected. You get to keep your house. Now, the mortgage on your house, you still have to keep making payments. They have what's called a secured loan on the property. Because they have a secured loan, if you do not pay them, they can take the house, go to a sheriff's sale. Every state is different on how it works. In Ohio, that's again another video on how that works, but they would go file a foreclosure against you. It would go to a sheriff. There would be an auction. The house would be sold after the bank or whoever has a lien is paid off, the taxes, any other liens in front. If there was anything extra, let's say it sold for $150,000 at auction, you would get the difference. If you continue to make the payments on the mortgage, you get to keep your house. They will not foreclose. Sometimes secured creditors will ask for a reaffirmation of debt, which means after the bankruptcy, you're going to agree that you are personally liable on that debt again. If you can get away with not signing a reaffirmation, it's, in my opinion, a little bit better, only because if something happens later where the roof is collapsing in, you lose your job again, something traumatic happens where you're not able to pay the debt, they can still foreclose and take the house on you. However, they cannot come after you personally if there's any deficiency. So if you owed $100 to the bank, it's sold at sheriff's sale for $50,000 and they're short $50, if you never reaffirm the debt, they cannot come after you for the difference. And usually, so long as you're making the payments to the bank, they do not foreclose. Every bank is different. Every lender is different. You just have to take that situation as it comes. Talk to your attorney. Again, this does not create an attorney-client relationship. Other assets. People say they have a vehicle. The protections in a vehicle are currently $3,775. Works the same way as a house. They're usually going to go off the blue book. You can always get an appraisal if you think your car is worth a little bit more. Things that people forget about that they may have as assets. Trailers, motorcycles, RVs, a boat. Understand that you can protect the equity in one vehicle. So if you have two cars in your name, husband and wife, and they're both in the husband's name or they're both in the wife's name, we can only protect one of those vehicles. And they're going to have a look back period. They're going to look back a year. They're going to look back 2 years, depending on who it is that you change the title on there. Talk to the attorney to make sure it's done correctly and that we are in the correct look back period. If you have your kid's vehicle in your name, they're going to count that as the one vehicle. So if you have you, your wife, your husband, your 2 kids, all of the vehicles are in one person's name, we're only going to be able to protect one of them. However, if the car or the vehicle is worth $7,000 because you just purchased it and you have a loan for $7,000, there's no need to protect it because there is no equity. Also, if the car is maybe worth about $1,000, instead of taking the car and selling it, usually the trustee will tell you, listen, the car is worth $1,000. If you would like to buy it from the bankruptcy, give us $1,000, maybe give us $950 because of the hassle, and you can keep the vehicle so long as you give us that money. Understand they're going to know where most of your money came from. They're going to ask you where you're getting that. You can, again, borrow from family. Maybe one of your kids will buy it back if it was in their name, if it was in your name and really belonged to them. Don't just transfer things. When you're transferring things, it's going to cause a lot of problems. Life insurance policies. There are exemptions for life insurance policies between spouses. There are exemptions on who actually owns it, if it's a whole or term. Understand term life policies generally do not have any equity in them, and so if you're making the payments, you're okay. But if you have a whole life policy that has a cash value, the U.S. trustee or the bankruptcy trustee is probably going to liquidate that life insurance policy and take any of the equity in it. Be sure to speak to an attorney to make sure that the timing is right, that anything that you have is protected in one way or another. Your tax refund is something else that they can go after. So depending on when you file, they may want to look at your past refund or they may want to look at your current refund that you're going to be getting. Talk to an attorney on the timing of your bankruptcy. You can't just go in and file, although you can, it's not necessarily the best idea. You want to be able to look at the overall situation. I'm not a fan of people just coming in and filing and being done with it. It does relieve a lot of stress. However, timing will get you the most out of this. The object of filing the bankruptcy is so that you can reset, get in the best situation so that you have less stress and move on. Understand that filing a bankruptcy, let's say in Ohio, if your house is in foreclosure, you have no equity in it, you're not able to keep it up and you've lost your job, if you just move out of the house because you're in foreclosure and you're going to be filing bankruptcy, you're going to have to pay rent somewhere. Talk to an attorney so that we can time when we're filing the bankruptcy. The bankruptcy will give you a little bit more time in the foreclosure process. You're still getting rid of all of your debts. During that time, maybe you can go back to school, you can find another job. While you're doing these items, you're able to reset yourself a little bit better. If you move out of your house immediately, you're going to have to start paying rent. And because you're paying rent somewhere, you might not have found the best job for yourself, or you might not have been able to continue your education or your training to be better qualified someplace else. So talk to an attorney. Get the most out of this situation so that you're on your feet, able to help everyone else, help yourself, and enjoy life. So now that we've looked at the assets, the things that you can protect, understand, again, you don't lose all of your assets. There's exemptions for jewelry, for your wedding ring, all of your household furniture, things of that nature. And again, all of that is under the Ohio Revised Code, and I will pull up, and it should be on your screen for a second, all of the different items. Now, what is it you need to file? You're going to need a few things when you go see an attorney. If you want to go, the way I generally do it is we'll have a short meeting. I'll go through all this stuff that I'm talking to you about now. You can ask some questions about certain situations. But the things that we need before we file, 6 months of pay stubs. We need to verify how much it is you're making, and the trustee is going to want to see it. We're going to need to see your tax returns. To be safe, last year's tax returns, this year's tax returns, and let's say we're filing right now, it's February. We're going to want to see last year's, or the one that you haven't even filed yet. Because I want to see if you have any tax refund coming. Because if you do, the trustee may take it. We have what's called a wildcard exemption that we can use anywhere. We usually use this for cash in your checking account that's above and beyond what you're allowed to protect. If there's additional equity in your car that we need to protect. If there's tools of the trade, let's say that you're a mechanic and you have some tools that you need to protect, there's additional things. We have that wild card, but generally I want to save that for tax refunds because a lot of people have tax refunds. So tax returns are what's going to need. 3 months of bank statements. It's not necessarily a requirement, but I'd like to see these so that I know where all the money's coming in and going out. A lot of times people forget about things. This allows me to see where things are. Credit card statements, again, 3 months. I can tell you if you're charging things, if you're not. If you're taking cash advances, this might be a problem. If all of a sudden you started eating out at fancy restaurants, if you started going on vacations, I would not worry too much if you were going to the grocery store, buying your normal household expenses, if your car needed new tires. The worst thing they can do is say, listen, this is right before you filed, and we think that this might be an abuse, in which case they might make you pay for it. Now understand that if you paid for new tires on your car, you needed those things. And if the worst thing they can do is make you pay for those new tires that you needed anyway in order for your vehicle to work, it's not a bad situation. Don't abuse your credit cards, and don't lie to your attorney especially, or to the trustee, and things will go very, very smoothly. Any copies of life insurance policies, we want to make sure if there's any equity in there. A copy of your car title, or if you have a loan on it, a memorandum of title. Once all of these items are in, we then take everything, enter it into a program, and you file bankruptcies electronically. If you're filing on your own, there are forms and places online. You can then turn it in. But however, if you're going to see an attorney, it's filed electronically. They're going to print everything out. You're going to sign everything. Once it's filed, well, before I forget, one last thing, you're going to have to take a pre-counseling bankruptcy course. Usually takes 45 minutes to an hour. There are a lot of places online. I've seen it as cheap as $7. I've seen it as expensive as $25. The average is $10 to $15 for this class. Your attorney should be able to give it to you. If you're finding it on your own, make sure that they are accepted in your state and in your county or in your district. Currently, I'm in the Northern District of Ohio. So once we get all this information in and we file the bankruptcy, anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks on average, we'll have a court date. We're going to go in and we're going to have what's called the 341 meeting of creditors. You're going to need a copy of a driver's license and an original Social Security card. If you do not have that, make sure you go and get one. Your attorney can help you with that as well. Once you go in, the trustee is going to ask you the same questions that we just went through. What are all your assets? What are all your debts? And why are you filing bankruptcy? We go ahead, as long as you're not lying about anything, long as some ex-spouse, ex-significant other doesn't come in and say, you know what, he's got a boat in his driveway he didn't tell you about, or he's got all this money stashed. So long as you're not lying about anything, everything goes smoothly. Generally, creditors are not showing up for credit cards, things of that nature, but they do have a right to do that, and they do have the trustee that's looking out for them. After that meeting, so long as there's no issues, everything is filed. After 6 months since we filed, so long as nothing else came up, you're discharged from your bankruptcy and it's time to start over. You cannot take on new debt during those 6 months. If you need to, because you're buying a house or whatnot, talk to your attorney. It just makes things a little bit more complicated, but sometimes the situation does come up that you need to do that. If you do need to do that, you petition the trustee saying, this is what is happening. I'm getting married. I'm buying a house with my spouse, my new spouse. That's why they didn't file the bankruptcy, and we go from there. And you're done. We're going to have another video on how to rebuild your credit afterwards, the different things that you can do. But hopefully maybe I can help you in the future. If you'd like, set up an appointment. I'm happy to meet with people. And good luck to you. Understand that bankruptcy is a way of resetting, getting you back on your feet so that you can contribute into society, feel good about yourself, and help the people around you. Understand it happens to a lot of people, and I wish you luck. Thanks for watching.